This is a special report from ABC News Digital.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Pfeffler in New York with an ABC News Digital special report sounding the alarm. The State Department has issued a worldwide travel warning and told at least 21 U.S. embassies in the Muslim world to shut down this Sunday, some of them already on lockdown. U.S. officials say they have intelligence pointing to a credible threat from Al-Qaeda and its affiliates about a planned attack on one or more American diplomatic outposts. Now, ABC's Martha Raddatz spoke to General Martin Dempsey, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, today, and had this to say about the latest alert. We have seen an increased threat stream of activity, and also we try to match those things up sometimes with events on the calendar. General Dempsey goes on to mention the Night of Power, an event in Ramadan that could coincide with the threat. He then says that in the past, they've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan a spike of violence on those particular days, so we are acting with caution. We will have more of that interview this Sunday on This Week. But right now, I want to bring in ABC's team in the Middle East and Washington. Alex Marquardt is in Cairo, Egypt via Skype, and Molly Hunter in Amman, Jordan today. Also speak to Dana Hughes at the State Department in just a moment in Washington, D.C. But first, Alex, I want to go to you. What can you tell us about the Night of Power? Why might Al-Qaeda choose it as a time to take aim at Western targets?
Well, Dan, the translation, the Night of Power translation, is just one of several. In Arabic, it's known as Laylat al-Qadr, and it's the night that Muslims believe, or the Muslims celebrate the anniversary of when they believe the Prophet Muhammad received the first Quranic verses. It's celebrated on different nights throughout the holy month of Ramadan by different factions within the Muslim community. It's celebrated on different nights by different countries. But it's one of the most important nights during Ramadan, which is the most important month of the entire year. And whether it's in Egypt or in Syria or during these various conflicts, that's when religious fervor is at its highest. And so that's when these extremist groups might be more inspired to carry out these attacks, not just during Ramadan, but on these important nights within Ramadan. Which
is reflective of what General Dempsey told Martha Raddatz a little bit earlier today. So the question, I guess, Alex, then is why so many embassies are on alert? Is it a matter of the State Department not having specifics, or is it a fear of coordinated attacks?
Well, certainly if they have specifics, they haven't shared them with the public, and I'm not sure to what extent they've shared them actually with their embassies. I've been in contact with the U.S. Embassy here. I don't get the impression that too much is known about these specific threats. As you heard, or as you mentioned, Chairman Dempsey told Martha Raddatz that there are various threat streams of activity, but they don't necessarily know where they are. They did issue a global alert, a global travel alert, talking about possible attacks that could take place here in North Africa as well as the Middle East that could emanate from the Arabian Peninsula. Of course, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in Yemen is considered to be one of the most dangerous, one of the most advanced Al-Qaeda cells in the world. So it's clear that they believe the threat could either emanate or at least be directed towards countries across the Middle East. And as you mentioned, 21 of those embassies or diplomatic posts, including consulates, have been closed. And really the only embassies or diplomatic posts in the world that are open on Sundays, except for Israel, are in the Muslim world. So it's clear that the intelligence community believes that the threat will come and or be directed at this region.
What about the embassy in Cairo? Is it closed right now?
It is closed right now, but today's Friday, so it would be closed anyway. We drove past it earlier today. I've been there many times. I didn't see any sort of increased level of security, at least on the outside. General Dempsey did say that they would be raising the security levels at the various embassies, specifically at the embassies that they consider to be the biggest targets. And one of the ways they'll be doing that is be increasing the number of Marines inside these embassies. Of course, a contingent of Marines is assigned to every embassy around the world.
And we were looking at a live picture there of Tahrir Square where Friday prayers are happening. And Alex, I wanted to ask a little bit about the logistics of that. When an embassy does close, you said that the Marines are brought in stronger numbers. But does everyone else, non-essential, do they leave the grounds?
It's a great question, and it depends on the embassy. There are embassies around the world that are essentially fortresses. If you look at the biggest U.S. embassies we have in Kabul and in Baghdad, and then in smaller ones like Beirut in Lebanon, those embassies have their personnel never leave, rarely leave rather, the grounds. They live on the grounds. And so, but across the board, when an embassy closes, what it essentially means is that the operations are shutting down, that people won't be in the offices. So for here in Cairo, for example, where most of the embassy personnel lives off campus, if you will, it means that they won't be going into work, that any sort of projects that they're working on within the embassy will be stopped. But perhaps most importantly, across the Muslim world, the operations that are mainly working on Sundays are the consular operations. So they're locals, in this case, Egyptians, who would be going to the embassy to get visas, to get their papers to go overseas. A lot of the American embassies staff, say the political side, the economic side, they would be working on an American schedule, Monday to Friday, normal working hours. The main operations that are open on Sundays are these consular services. So the people who will be most affected are the locals, the non-Americans.
Secretary of State John Kerry was in Pakistan, and he spoke about the turmoil in Egypt. And here's a bit of what he said.
To run the country, there's a civilian government. In effect, they were restoring democracy.
And so my question, Alex, then obviously on the heels of this, how is the Muslim Brotherhood reacting to that?
Well, in short, they're very angry. I would say, in fact, they're furious about it. They have called this a military coup. From the get-go, they've been angry with America for not calling it a coup. They believe that America is being extremely superficial and, in fact, being weak in not calling it a military coup, simply backing whichever power here in Egypt is essentially the strongest, is controlling the country at the time. The spokesman came out earlier saying that the U.S. is now complicit in the deposing of President Mohamed Morsi by the military, and so they think it's incredibly hypocritical for what the U.S. holds itself up as a beacon for democracy around the world, so they consider it incredibly hypocritical for us to now be supporting the force that took out the first democratically elected president of Egypt.
All right. And lastly, Alex, before we let you go, I want to ask just to the larger point of those embassies being closed around the world. How does it affect you as a journalist then covering, and specifically in Egypt?
Well, not too much, to be honest. I mean, I have been to the embassy a number of times for meetings with the ambassador, for meetings with officials. So in a sense, it could make it more difficult to interface with them, to meet with them. It's more difficult, I got to tell you, to get them on the phone these days because it is extremely busy right now. In calmer times, it's very easy to swing by the embassy, meet with officials to get a sense of what they're thinking. Today, for example, I met with an embassy official, and we had to do it in a cafe quite a long distance away from the embassy. So in that sense, it'll affect what we're doing, but not too much. It really will be affecting mostly the locals, the Egyptians here, who are trying to go in on Sunday to get their visas to the States.
All right, ABC's Alex Marquardt in Cairo, Egypt. Alex, thank you, and of course, stay safe as always. Right now, I want to bring in ABC's Molly Hunter. She is in Amman, Jordan. Molly, the embassy in Amman also scheduled to be closed on Sunday, right? Is the city on high alert from what you can tell?
It's not. As Alex was saying, it's not visible from the outside here either. We drove by the embassy. It's in one of the nicest neighborhoods in Amman, usually very heavily guarded and still very heavily guarded. Nothing was obvious to the eye.
What about like any public statements from local authorities? Are they telling anyone to be aware, to be on the lookout for anything? I know obviously stateside, when any kind of a warning comes about, there are very specific protocols that the local authorities will follow as far as issuing to citizens. But what about in Jordan?
In this instance, I think part of it is that it's unclear. They don't necessarily know. And if they do know, I'm not sure that they've told their Jordanian counterparts. We spoke with both Jordanian officials today and the U.S. Embassy, and Jordanian officials deferred us to the U.S. Embassy officials with kind of any logistical or operational questions. The U.S. Embassy officials told us, if you need us, call us, but don't go hanging around the U.S. Embassy in Amman on Sunday.
Really interesting. What about Americans that are there? Are there safety precautions been put into place, or what are you being told?
Look, we're being told to avoid the embassy as well. We're being told to avoid major crowd areas, major tourist hotspots. Amman has seen some major terrorist attacks in the last 10 years on big hotels. So I probably won't be swinging by the Four Seasons or the Intercon, which are kind of major tourist hotspots filled with Americans. But we're being told it's business as usual, but be on alert on Sunday.
All right, ABC's Molly Hunter in Amman, Jordan. Molly, thank you for that. And of course, stay safe as well. I want to go to Washington. Our Dana Hughes is at the State Department. And Dana, the state is using language that is not its run-of-the-mill stay alert warning. When was the last time we've had this number of closings for embassies?
Well, Dan, that's a really interesting question. The last time that there was kind of a mass number of closings was right after the Benghazi consulate attack and the protests around the Muslim world for that anti-Muslim film. Now, what State Department officials say is that that was actually different than what's happening now. There was a very public angry threat towards Americans. The last time there was a number of embassies closed because of an intelligence tip happened the first anniversary of 9/11. But even then, we're not sure. We're checking to see. This might be the largest number of closings of embassies that has occurred.
So, given that, is it fair for those that might say this could be an overreaction to last year's attack in Benghazi, Libya, or is it strictly based on intelligence?
I think that it's a combination of both. I don't know that the State Department would say it was an overreaction. Remember that for the good part of the last year, the department has been hammered by members of Congress for not taking threats against diplomatic posts seriously. So, both you heard in the General Dempsey interview with Martha Raddatz that there's a very specific stream of credible threats. And the State Department actually put that in their warning. They said that there was a specific threat, and they named Al-Qaeda as being a part of that. So I think that post-Benghazi, there is a feeling that it's better to be safe than sorry.
What about the fact that there have been some recent prison breaks at Abu Ghraib in Iraq, in Pakistan, that contained Al-Qaeda members? Has the State Department said anything about a possible connection then related to this alert?
They haven't. And, the State Department has said that this is Al-Qaeda, that there's an Al-Qaeda element to it. And again, Chairman Dempsey told Martha that, that this was tied to some type of Al-Qaeda affiliate. But there haven't been any specifics about which Al-Qaeda affiliate or where this is coming from. And that's part of the reason why there's such a mass number of closings. They know that there's a threat out there, but they can't pinpoint exactly who or where it might occur. A
lot of people that are watching, they're trying to just get more information as far as what this travel alert actually means for them and what they should be doing. So what is the State Department saying U.S. citizens should be doing based on this information?
The State Department's advice to U.S. citizens is to really just be aware. Understand that the terrorists are looking to target Western targets. That means tourist infrastructure. That also means public transportation and railways. And that means crowds of tourists. And that really American citizens who are traveling or living abroad should be alert and look out for situations where terrorists may want to take advantage of that.
All right, ABC's Dana Hughes at the State Department, rounding up our team coverage. Molly Hunter in Amman, Jordan. Both of you, thank you very much for that. The latest on the travel warning and this weekend's threat here on abcnews.com. And this Sunday, be sure to tune in to This Week with George Stephanopoulos and see Martha Raddatz's full interview with General Martin Dempsey. For now, I'm Dan Kleffler in New York with this ABC News Digital Special Report.
Special report from ABC News Digital.